everyone, this is the final video of Italian, and we will finish up by taking a look at our 10 sample words, which we saw at the beginning. We're going to look at the pronunciations again and the spellings again and see if we can apply all that we have learned to these words. So let me write out the words first. First word, chiaroscuro, chiaroscuro. Then we had bragazzo, bragazzo. Next was crescendo, crescendo. Fourth was tagliatelle, tagliatelle. And fifth was fettuccine, fettuccine. Okay, and sixth was sdruciola, sdruciola. Next we had sinfonietta, sinfonietta, sinfonietta. The next word was verdicchio, verdicchio. Number 9 was campanile, campanile. And of course, our final word was pizza. Hopefully you remember that, pizza. Okay, so now we can go through each one of these words and break it up into parts and see if we can use all our vowel rules and consonant rules of Italian and see why are they spelled the way they are. And a lot of these words we probably came across when we were doing our example words. So, we're going to look at those too. The examples, some words that were examples, why they were examples. Okay, so let's start with the first word, chiaroscuro, and the first sound we have is the k sound. Now remember, the k sound at the beginning of a word can be either C or CH. There aren't that many with CH, but if they are, they precede an I. And because we have a ya sound right after the k, we know it's going to be IA, because the ya is always either an IA or an IO. If it's yo, it's IO. If it's ya, it's IA. So we know this is an I because we have an IA, so this must be a CH for the k sound. So, kya, kya, that's where we get the CH and then the IA from. So it's kind of like working in reverse to kind of figure out that this is a CH, okay? So that's kya. And then also this is A, because the IA comes about because the A represents the ah sound most of the time in Italian. That's the A with 2 dots sound, and A is the most frequent way to spell that. So IA. Okay, and then R is normal. We have an O for our schwa. O for our schwa. Remember, the schwa can be it can be anything. At the end, it's usually an A, but in the middle, it could be A, E, I, O, or U. So here it's O. And then we have scuro, scuro. And remember the k sound right here, as we see here, in the middle of a word, it's kind of rare to have just a C. Usually it's a CCH or a CH or a CC. Remember, I said that C is usually reserved for the beginning. It's kind of rare, but there's good reason for why this is C. It's because this whole thing contains the Latin root obscurus, meaning dark. So if you can recognize that in the definition and you know the Latin root obscurus, then this whole thing is going to be SCURO. So that's why we have SC instead of CCH or CH or CC. So SC, and then euro is a common ending in Italian words. Of course, the U for the sound, R is normal, and then the long O is represented by just an O. And this happens at the ends of a lot of Italian words, like this one, and bragazzo, and crescendo, and verdicchio. The ending O happens a lot. So that's why we end with an O. So that's chiaroscuro, chiaroscuro. Okay, word number 2, bragazzo. So BR is pretty normal. Spell it, the br sound is always, BR. Then we have a schwa. Here it's going to be an A. Remember, it can be anything. Here it's an A. Okay, now we have a G. Remember, the g sound in Italian can be either G or GH. G is going to precede an A, O, or U because it still stays hard. So if we have an O here, we know that this is going to be a G, not a GH, because GH comes before I's and E's. But how do we know this is an O? Because it's an O with one dot sound. It's the aw sound, and we know that's going to be an O. It's the only way to spell it. So reverse engineering, this is going to be a G. Okay, so G-O. Again, the TS sound, the T sound, is mostly going to be spelled with a double Z in Italian. It could be a single Z, but most of the time, two Z's, so that's why we have ZZ. And again, we have that long O sound at the end, so it's going to be an O. So that's bragazzo, bragazzo. Okay, next word, crescendo. Crescendo, CR is pretty normal. Again, the C sound at the beginning could be C or CH, but here we're fine with the C because a consonant follows it, and R does. So CR works for us. Then we have an E for the sound, and E is schwa with a dot on top. It's the I sound, so that's why we're going to use an E. Now, this sound isn't too common in Italian, but it does work, so E for that. Also, you might recognize the Latin root crescent in there, so if you recognize that, you know it's going to be an E there. So we shouldn't worry about that sound too much, but we know this is going to be an E. Okay, now we have the sh sound, the SH sound, which is going to be spelled SC most of the time. Remember, the only other option was CH, usually in words that pass through French origin, but this one doesn't, so it's going to stay true to its pure Italian origin. It's going to be SC for the sh sound. And then endo is very simple, E for the S sound. And then endo, altogether it looks very simple, E-N-D-O. We have the, again, the O for the O sound. So endo is ending all together. So let me make this together. Endo. Okay, and that's also a common ending for many Italian words, but even if you look into that further, we see that, E for the which is going to happen most of the time, and O for the O, which is going to happen all the time. So that's crescendo. Okay, word number 4, tagliatelle. T is normal, starts off with a T. Again, we have an A sound, A with two dots, and that's going to be an A. It could be an O sometimes, but mostly it's going to be an A. So ta. Then we have our lia sound. Now, first of all, remember when we said that the L sound in Italian can be either an L or a GL. And we said that GL, we would know a word would be GL if we hear a Y sound after it, a Y sound. Remember I said if a spelling has GL, usually it's going to precede the spelling IA or IO. And again, just with chiaroscuro, you know how we figured out that this was going to be an IA because we heard the Y sound? Same here, this is talia, ya, tele, and because we heard that ya, we know this is going to be an IA. And again, if you look back, we can then figure out that this is going to be a GL because it has the ya sound. So altogether, it's like a lia sound. So talia, tele. So this has to be a GL, okay, because it has that Y at the beginning. So that explains the GL and the IA, because the IA is going to be like the ya sound or the ya sound. So that's the talia part. Tele part is pretty simple. T again for the ta. This E represents a short E, which is e. It's going to happen all the time. Here we have a double L, very, very common. Double consonants are very common in Italian, and LA is definitely LA or LE. They both are spelled ELLE, and we'll see that when we look at fettuccine. But LA or LE, common endings for Italian, that's why we have double L. And then remember, if a word ends in the long E sound, which is E, it can be either an I or an E. It can end in either an I or an E. Here it's going to end with an E. In this case, you would sort of have to know the word. Usually if a word ends in I, it's a plural, so you can also ask for the part of speech. That might help. So really, in order to figure out if something ends in an I or an E, you would sort of have to know the word, but here it's going to be an E. Okay, word number 5, fettuccine. Fettuccine. Now the F sound is always going to be F in Italian. It's going to be F all the time. Then we have E for the S sound. Again, E for the S sound. Then we have a double T. Remember, Italian loves its double consonants, and that's partly why we have double T. Also, if we had one T, because it would be a vowel, consonant vowel, it would probably be like feticelli instead of fettuccine. So using your logic there, you could figure out it's going to be a double T. Then we have schwa, which is going to be represented by the U. Really, it could be anything. Here it's a U. Alright, now we have the ch sound. The cha sound, remember, it was a little complicated, but when it's in the middle of a word, it can be spelled many, many different ways. It can be spelled with a C or a CI or a CC or a CCI. Now remember I said CC, the spelling CC is usually going to come before the letter E. And the example we looked at was fettuccine, so if you remember that, then you're good to go. So remember, CC is usually going to come before an E, and we know this is an S sound, so this is going to be an E, so this is going to be a CC. So that's how we figure out this is a CC, not anything else. So CC, and then we have that E for the S sound. Again, our double L, part of that ending, L-E-L-A, but here we end in an E, so it's fettuccine. Now remember, this is tagliatelle, and I said that, if a word ends in E, it's going to be I or an E. Well, that actually applies to fettuccine than tagliatelle, because this is actually pronounced tagliatelle. Sometimes it's pronounced tagliatelle, but the main pronunciation is tagliatelle, so we know the long A sound in Italian is going to be E all the time. So we don't have to worry about the I or E ending, because this is going to be an E no matter what, because it's the long A sound. Fettuccine, however, is going to be, you're going to have that. Is it an I or an E? Because it ends in the sound E. So this one, yeah, we didn't really have to think about the I or the E because it's tagliatelle, but here we do have to think about it because it's fettuccine. It ends in an E. And again, it's going to be an E here. So again, you just sort of have to know the word. Again, like I said, the part of speech might help. If it's plural, most likely going to be I. And it's best, to just know the word. That's kind of like the best way to know if it's an I or an E. Okay, so that's fettuccine. Okay, and word number 6 is zruciola. Zruciola. Remember, the Z sound is going to be an S most of the time, especially at the beginning, because a lot of Italian words start with S, which is the same thing as EX. The root EX, or the prefix EX in English, which means out. So that's why we have the S for the Z sound. DR is normal, normal consonant blend. Then we have U with 2 dots, which is pronounced oo. Zruciola, it's going to be U all the time. Here we have our CCI. Remember, CCI is usually going to precede an A or an O, so we'll be covered in order to, to help us figure out how the ch sound is spelled. CCI is usually going to come before an A or an O, and we know this is going to be an O because it's zruciola. If we know it's an O, we can figure out it's a CCI because this is a schwa. So we might not be sure, but again, OLA is somewhat common ending in Italian, so if we guess that this is an O, and we would be right, then we can figure out this is a CCI for the ch sound. So that's how we figure out CCI, and then the O, zrucha, and then we have la, L normal, and then the ending A, zruciola. Okay, so that's zruciola. Okay, the next word is sinfonietta. Sinfonietta. The first part is really simple, follows all the Italian rules. As for the S sound, I for the I sound, and for the N sound, so we have sin. Again, F is always going to be spelled with an F, like no PH here. You can see that you might recognize the word symphony in here, which is a Greek word. Sim meaning together and phonos meaning sound, but in Italian the word is sinfoni. It's spelled like this. That's why the F is going to stay as an F, not a PH, and that's why the I is going to stay as an I, not a Y, because this is a true Italian word. Okay, so then we have sinfonietta, then we have our O in there for the schwa. Okay, so it's a. Again, it can be anything. Now, because we know it's from the word symphony, we can probably guess that it's going to be an O because the vowels might not change, and that's true here. So we know this is an O. Now we have the nya sound. Remember I said the nya sound is going to be spelled GN most of the time, but here, if you look at the pronunciation of the word, the N and the Y sound, they're separated by an accent mark. It's sinfun, and then it's yetta. And that's probably why it's not a GN here. And that's why it's an N-I-E-T-T-A instead of a GN. Also, because it comes from symphony is another reason why it's not GN. So, it's going to be GN 99% of the time. There are just some little examples where it's not, and this is just one of them. So that's why it's an NI instead of a GN, because the accent mark in the middle, and then it's from symphony, so sinfonietta. Also, etta is a common ending we saw, which is a female diminutive or feminine diminutive, if you remember when we did the stems. And if we know that, we know it's going to be ETTA. Again, looking into this, E for the S sound, double T again. Double letters are very common in Italian, and then our A, the ending, okay? Also, we can also figure out that this is an O, because if we ask for the alternate pronunciation is sinfonietta with a long O sound, and the long O sound is always going to be spelled with an O. So again, this just, highlights how important the alternate pronunciations are. It's sinfonietta or sinfonietta, and that can help us figure out that this is an O. So that's sinfonietta. Okay, the next word is verdicchio. V is normal. The E is representing the schwa here. If you recognize the Latin verd, meaning green, also in French it's vert, meaning green. So if you know that, this is going to be an E. So again, those roots are going to help. RD is normal, verdicchio, and RD is normal again. I for the I sound, only way to spell it. Here we have our K sound. Remember, the CCH for the K sound is really rare. There's only about 18 words, if you recall. Remember, our example was zucchini, but here's another example, verdicchio. So CCH for the K sound. Again, like I said before, it's best for you to learn all the words with the CCH for the K sound because it's not too common, and this is one of them. And then we have our yo sound at the end. Remember, the yo is going to be IO, especially at the ends of words. Again, we have our O at the ending. Remember, ya is IA, and yo is IO, and this follows exactly that. So that's verdicchio. Verdicchio. Next word is campanile. Campanile is very simple at the beginning. C for the K. It doesn't need to be a CH here because it's before an A, so the C still stays hard. So we can have the K sound. Okay, so then we have AM. Very normal. A for the A sound, campanile. Okay, that's the only way to spell it. MP normal, just how you would spell it in English. Then we have a schwa, which is an A here. Okay, you might recognize campan as a root, campanos. So if you know that, this is going to be an A. That's usually the best way to figure out the schwa. That's campanile. Figure out the campa part, and the nili, the N is normal. And then the I here, it's a long E sound, E, which is going to be I usually in the middle of words. Right here, L is normal. But remember, the E sound, just like here, occurs at the end of the word. And at the end of the word, it can be either an I or an E. And here, it's E. So, you sort of have to know the word in order to know that this is an E. But remember, if the sound occurs in the middle of the word, it's going to be an I most of the time. Just like right here, campanile, it's an I. But if it's at the end, it can be I or an E. And this is a perfect example that can help you remember that rule because it's NILE. And, it just shows exactly what I just said, that the E in the middle is going to be I most of the time, but at the end, it can be I or E. So that's campanile. And our final word, perhaps our favorite word out of this list, pizza. P is normal. Always going to be P. Then we have our long I, or long E sound, which I just talked about. If it's in the middle of a word, it's going to be I. That's why we have the I for the E sound. And then we have our double Z for the TS sound. Remember, it's going to be double Z or a single Z, but most of the time double Z. There's a lot of words with double Z, pizza being one of them, so that's why we have the ZZ for the TS sound. Then we have a schwa at the end, and if you recall, the schwa at the ends of Italian words are usually going to be spelled with an A, which is the case in many, many languages. Remember, except for German. German schwas at the ends are usually spelled with an E, and that's what sets German apart, but almost every other language, schwas at the ends are going to be A. Same goes for Italian. That's why we have P-I-Z-Z-A for pizza. Okay, so this concludes our 10 words and our study on Italian. I hope you can understand how the rules are applied as we see with these 10 words. Italian is a very simple language, so should be pretty easy to apply all the rules. Just remember, you can also use the reverse engineering that we saw to figure out the vowels first, and that can help with the consonants. So also the roots and the alternate pronunciations can help with Italian, so it should be pretty simple to figure out the spellings. Also, I hope you've had to have fun exploring this very musical and delicious and just overall beautiful language. See you again. Ciao.